Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or are seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. What's up, lady?
I don't know. It's been a while. I feel like it's been forever, but it's probably really only been about 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
2 weeks. Is it 3? It's quite frigid. We are recording first, 2 days into February, and I'm pretty sure almost the whole country is frigid right now. So it's not just us.
Yes. Yes, it is bitter cold out. Today was a warm day at a shocking 30 degrees. Was warm.
It was toasty.
And I worked from home, which in general is nice, but my office at work is very nice and toasty warm. So I did miss that. But, my house is a normal temperature. So
yeah. It looks like we do not get above freezing at least for the next 10 days. So all the snow is just hanging there.
It is. It's just lingering forever and ever. Amen. So what have you been up to with we had the giant snowstorm. How many inches did you get?
I didn't exactly measure it, but I think when it was...
Well, what they approximated for your area, because what they said I got in my area, I don't think is true.
See, I think I got more and then the ice weighed it down. So I think before it started icing, it was closer to 10 to 12 inches, but then it iced on top of it and that compressed it. So in the end, maybe 8-ish, 9-ish.
By me, the weather people measurements said 26 inches. I would guess it, from my estimation, and I am not a doctor of measurement. I am terrible at measurement, actually. I guesstimated 18 inches, but it was a significant amount. It was.
Yeah, because you're more inland. You got it more.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to shovel 4 times just my walk, because that's all I'm responsible for, and clean off my car. I had to clean off my car 6 times because 3 times it got plowed in by the snowplow.
Oh no, that's the worst. And
it wasn't even it was purposeful, because I was parked on an end. They saw where they were dumping that snow.
Right.
They did it anyway.
Geez.
And even though this is now a full entire week since the snowstorm ended, there are still spots that have not been cleared by our maintenance.
That's always fun. Yeah.
And there's still some people's cars that they never dug out. I'm like, girl, that's not good for you.
It's not going to get easier. It's just going to get harder.
With the ice. And then who knows what happens to your car when it's under ice for that long.
I have no idea.
Especially with all these new cars with the computers and shit.
That's true. I didn't really think about that. It is so cold that we don't park our cars in our garage because they don't fit, but we keep certain things in our garage, cans of soda and things like that. I'm things are going to start exploding because our garage is so cold that we brought our snow blower into the garage a week ago. There's a little bit of snow on it and it never melted, which means it's still freezing in there. Yeah.
Well, I made a very poor decision. It was a good decision at the time, but in retrospect, it was a poor decision. So where I live, my townhouse backs up to a creek and there are lots of critters of all sorts back there. Well, I decided, because I didn't want my recycling to get stuck in the snow, that I would bring my recycling can in. You know what happened? I brought in a mouse.
No.
So I feel terrible that he will have to go to mouse heaven because I don't want him in my house, but it is my fault that he came in. I own that. I did try to catch him by healthier means, by trying to throw a box over him, but he was too fast for me. So now they're a trap set, and I apologize, Mickey or Minnie. May you rest in peace. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a lot of garbage can mouse stories.
I do. It's weird. Yeah, because I had one at the workplace.
Yes.
Yeah. Which that would have been great if that happened in my house, because then I could have just tossed him outside and he could have survived. But he's going to have to go, and I feel guilty, but it's the circle of life.
Sorry. No mouse poopy in the house. Yucky.
Yeah.
This is why you need a cat or a dog.
Well, when I had a cat and I had a mouse, he just watched it and looked at me like,
No.
hey, what are you going to do about it? So he was useless.
Oh no.
So not all cats are made for catching mice.
Instinct there.
Yeah, he wasn't very good at catching many things. He once caught a dragonfly and was so proud of himself, but that was it. In 13
Oh,
years, he never caught anything else.
that's
So,
cute.
no, it's not cute when you have to pick up the parts of a headless dragonfly across your house. So I'm actually glad he didn't kill the mouse because that would have been who knows what.
Oh God.
Yeah, that was gross.
Okay, let's move on from that.
Yes,
That's a
pause,
little
please,
much to
1
think
second.
about.
Sorry, I have a little space heater in here because it's drafty in this room, but it was getting too hot. So, should we get into it?
I told you I was very excited about this, and then you looked at me
You are?
cross-eyed like, what is wrong with you?
No, because I think I am so enmeshed in true crime and serial killers that I often just assume that other people think I'm crazy. And so I don't talk about it a lot with many folks. And then when someone's like, I'm excited, I'm like, oh, you're weird like me. Yeah.
It's my jam, I said. And this is one of my like ones that I've known, a lot about. And so I'm very excited for this.
Well, this one definitely got a lot of press for many, many reasons. But the twist I'm going to take on it is just some factual background stuff about consequences for serial killing and how death row works and some things that I learned in the newest documentary. So let me start with my drink first. The name of my drink is aptly named Death Row.
Yes.
And it's actually surprisingly tasty. I didn't think I would like it.
Yeah.
But it is 34, geez.
34 of anything is a
34
lot.
ounces. No, three-fourths of an ounce. Wow. I didn't even drink the whole thing yet, and I read it wrong. 3/4 of an ounce of Blanco tequila. I didn't have Blanco, so I used like gold tequila, like Jose Cuervo. Use whatever you got.
Whatever you got.
And it's only 3/4 of an ounce, so it's not like it's that much tequila that it's going to matter. 3/4 of an ounce of Ari, 3/4 lemon juice, 3/4 simple syrup, and then 1.5 ounces of an IPA. That's why I thought I wouldn't like it. I'm not a big beer drinker, although I did go to a brewery last week and I found one that I enjoyed, but it wasn't super beery.
Yeah.
Beer-like, whatever. And then it says you can garnish with a grapefruit zest. I didn't have one, but I did have a dehydrated orange, so that's what I put on it. And basically, you just pour all the ingredients over ice in a rocks glass, and then you top with the IPA.
Nice. I like IPAs. Tasty. I'm a beer person, and I could see that like citrusy, herby, tequila-y stuff with that. That sounds pretty neat, actually. It's like a beer cocktail.
Yeah, and the reason this is called the Death Row is because there's multiple alcohols involved, and it doesn't taste like it. So be prepared.
Well, you know what? My next drink is also a beer shot combo, so similar.
Yes, it is.
Vibes.
And this cocktail, I just have to give a shout out because it's so cute. It's from L-I-Q, like liquor. Wow, words today. Culture.com. It is done by, this cocktail is created by Monica C., who says she's our fairy bar mother. And I love that for her. So
that's very cute.
Had to share that. So thanks to Monica.
Cute.
So today, I am going to talk about a documentary that just came out this year, and it is the documentary entitled Aileen, Queen of Serial Killers. And it follows the story of Aileen Wuornos, who was famously known as one of the first female serial killers. She's not the only one, and she technically wasn't the first, but she was one of the more modern female serial killers.
Right.
So that film came out in 2025. As I said, it's on Netflix. And it is actually a series. So it's several short episodes. And it kind of covers her story, what went on with her crimes, and then what happened after she was convicted, and then eventually she was sentenced to death. So it's a pretty good watch for someone like us, like we were just talking about, who's really into serial killers. I had seen and read a lot about her, especially when it first came out. She was executed in 2002. So that was when there was like a kind of a renewed interest in her story. The movie Monster with Charlize Theron came out. That was a portrayal of her story. And that came out in 2003. So I think that's really when it was all renewed in the media.
The pop culture. And she won an award for that.
She did. She won an Oscar for that.
Yeah.
And Christina Ricci was in that and played her lover. So I just love Christina Ricci, so I just have to
Yes.
give her a shout out whenever she's in something. So a little bit about Aileen. Aileen Wuornos was convicted of killing 7 men across the state of Florida, particularly Central Florida, between the years of 1989 and 1990. And so it got a lot of attention because she didn't fit the typical serial killer profile, especially because she was a woman, but for many other reasons as well. And so this case got a lot of attention initially when it was first occurring, like when she was first, actually, when it was first being investigated, there was actually, if you saw the documentary, they actually were advertising stuff about it before she'd even been fully arrested. Like they were investigating the crime and then they
Right.
were like trying to do news stories about it. And I'm like, how was that okay?
Yeah.
To start talking about this and advertising stuff when you don't even have the person in custody yet.
Right. Right. It's interesting though that all these things were documented before this became such a big thing, like documenting serial killers, interviews, things like this, them pulling all these tapes and doing all these things. It feels like that was fairly ahead of the time.
I would say yes, but I also feel like people, especially reporters who focus on true crime, I think they're always doing that because they never know what's going to become of the case. So they're always wanting to document and have lots of records of stuff in case it does jump off.
Right.
And then if it doesn't, no harm done.
Right.
We still have a good story. But I think they didn't really realize how much public attention the story would catch. And so it just kind of was kismet, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, you said you did watch this documentary.
Absolutely. Yes.
So tell me, what were some of your take-home points? Because I'm not going to go over every single detail. Most people have heard of Aileen Wuornos. They knew that she was a sex worker and that she was hitchhiking, and that was how she would find her victims. And then she killed the ones who she claimed had turned the paid sexual contact into rape or some other type of violence. She did have many, many other Johns who she was not violent towards at all. In fact, I don't know if you remember in the documentary, one of them was interviewed and he actually talked very kindly about her.
Right.
Even though he was admitting to being her John and paying for sexual contact with her, he apparently was a frequent customer and was never threatened by her or felt there was anything wrong.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot of feelings about this. One of the big things I remember taking away from this, though, is I do feel like the way that her initial conviction happened, I didn't feel as comfortable with. I didn't feel that because she was convicted on her first chronologic murder, but they brought in the later murders as evidence of that, and that they also, I believe, suppressed the fact that the man she murdered had also had a rape charge previously. So yes. I feel like, yes, she would have eventually gone to jail for all of her other counts, but I feel like the way that one went down, I didn't feel comfortable that it was a fair trial.
Yeah, and that does come up in the documentary. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, she essentially her girlfriend / lover / wife, I don't know if they had been married at that point. They were planning to get married at some point, but she ended up essentially turning her into the police. And then when Aileen kind of got wind that things were going down, she turned herself in and confessed to protect her lover because she was concerned that her lover would be implicated in all of it. And to her dying day, she continued to say that her lover was innocent in all of this. From all the information that came out, it does seem like maybe she knew what was going on, but she was not directly involved in anything.
Right.
It sounds like she kind of knew after the fact, like, oh gosh, another one, or oh, you did this, or something like that. But she was not an active participant or reinforcing this in any way. So basically what happens is there are, I think initially they were only trying to try her on 5 of the murders, even though she did eventually confess to 7. And so they were planning to try each of those crimes separately. And so people who follow true crime probably hear that this varies. I do believe it depends on the jurisdiction. It depends on the prosecutor, whether all the crimes are tried together or tried separately. I think in certain jurisdictions, families get a say in it, whether they want to be all lumped together or separated.
Right.
So it seems like in this one, the goal was to do them all separately. But then once she was convicted on the first one and given the death penalty, she essentially said, well, I don't want to do any more trials. Like, you can't kill me multiple times. So let's just, like, yes, I admit to it already. Like, let's just call it a wash. you want to give me 300 years or whatever, that's fine. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm still going to die for this.
Yeah. And I take it as she was very sort of logical sounding in her choices.
At that point.
At that point. Right. But, yes, there were other things, but that decision felt logical. It felt like it made sense.
It felt logical from just a practical standpoint, saving, the court system time and money, saving the victims heartache. But I can also see the flip side of it, where if there wasn't a trial for your loved one, how you may feel like you didn't get the justice that you wanted.
Right. Understandable. Absolutely.
So I think it could go both ways. So basically, she's killing all these people. She gets turned in. She admits to everything. And then she spends some time on death row before eventually being executed. Another interesting part of the documentary was that woman who adopted her. Did you want to speak to that?
That was bizarro, weirdo. Don't understand.
It's not the first time that happens with people on death row.
Yeah, it was this weird. I don't remember. How did she even hook up with her? She just was like a fangirl of her.
Essentially, she kind of was following the case and had written her letters, and then they connected. And
then she would just came in and was like calling her daughter and saying she adopted her. Like, legally, she did some sort of paperwork too.
She did. She did legally adopt her. Yes.
As an adult. I mean, she's adopted
as an adult. Yeah. You can technically legally adopt an adult if they're both consenting parties.
But it was just bizarro. Like, we never met. I'm your fangirl. I'm going to come and be a little weird and obsessed. And then she went, of course, all the interviews and all this stuff. So, like, what was the real reason? Was she trying to, like, just be famous herself? I don't know. I felt that woman was wacko, bizarro.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I just watched a different show on Netflix. You've probably seen it before. It's called I Am a Killer. Well, there's a new one that was just released, I believe, this week called I Am a Killer Released. And it's about a man who was on death row, and due to some technicalities on his trial, he was actually released from prison after serving some time. And he goes to stay with this woman that he developed a non-sexual, non-romantic relationship with. And he refers to her as mother too. And so I have a feeling that in the larger context of things, when people have done something so egregious that they're ending up on death row, I do think a lot of them lose those natural family connections. Mm-hmm. And so I think they're searching for something, whether it's just to have someone to talk to and someone to visit, or maybe something more. I think it probably depends on a case-by-case basis. This guy in this film, he needed her he needed to use her as his release address because he had to have a specific place to go to. That's a whole different story. We might cover that in another episode, but I bring that up because I don't think it's as unusual as it seems, even though in the basis of real life, day-to-day normal people, it is kind of bizarre to have a full-grown adult adopt a full-grown adult.
Yeah, but this whole woman's just whole way to me was just out there. I just felt like there was some ulterior motive somewhere about this. I don't know.
Right.
But I understand, like, Aileen wanting a connection, wanting somebody, like, accepting that. I can understand her end, her accepting somebody, like, who's going to care for me. Like, sure, that makes sense. And I don't know if you're going to go into her life trauma, but she's like, trauma on trauma on trauma on trauma. Like,
yes. Yeah. So I'm not going to go over every detail, but basically Aileen was born in 1956 in Michigan. Her mom was 14 when she got married to an 18-year-old. And so this was before Aileen was born. So her mom was a child essentially when she married this 18-year-old man who later was sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping and raping a child. So that just kind of gives you some of the general context. Apparently Aileen is not that person's child. It's a question mark. Yeah, it's a question mark because after 2 years of marriage and 2 months before Aileen was born, she divorced that man. So it's not entirely sure if he's actually her biological father or not. Mm-hmm. Either way, he was imprisoned. He was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he did complete suicide by hanging himself in prison. So at this point, it's Aileen and her older brother with her mom. Aileen's mom was 16 when she gave birth to her, like you were just saying. So very young. Essentially what happens is Aileen's mom gives the kids to her mother to take care of them because she can't manage it. And then they do legally adopt both Aileen and her brother several years later. However, it then comes to light that both of those grandparents had significant alcohol problems. It's alleged that her grandfather had sexually assaulted her and beaten her when she was younger. But prior to that, he would do a lot of humiliation and sexually inappropriate things, like just make her strip down, walk around. And then by this point, she's only 11 years old and she's already been through all of this. So then she's engaging in voluntary sexual activity at school in exchange for cigarettes, drugs, food, money, things like that. And there's also a rumor, I feel like they don't talk about this in the documentary, that she did engage in sexual activity with her brother. So definitely not a supportive, stable, normal household that she's growing up in, despite having someone to care for her. Because in the documentary, she does speak very, very highly of her grandmother and how loving she was and how much she cared for her. But spoiler alert, her grandmother does pass away at some point because she is older already when she takes these children in. Aileen becomes pregnant at the age of 14, and she gives birth to a boy who she then gives up for adoption once her grandfather finds out about the child. Apparently, she had hid the pregnancy.
But I think there was alleged that it was like the grandfather's
it was his
friend,
child, yeah.
And it was his or a friend of his, and it was rape. And
yeah. So it's very murky, but
yeah.
She does talk about at that point she was having consensual relations with multiple people, but had also been raped by a friend of her grandfather, was being abused by her grandfather as well. So there was a lot going on at that time.
A lot.
And just for context, she's a child. She's 14.
Yeah.
So that's a lot for a 14-year-old mind to hold on to, let alone then be counting the days and figuring out paternity and all of that stuff. So she ends up dropping out of school after her son was born, after she gave him up for adoption, and then her grandmother died shortly thereafter. So now at the age of 15, she's thrown out of her house because her grandfather doesn't want her there, and she ends up essentially being homeless, living in the woods, and supporting herself through sex work. So that's just early life. She's not even an 18. She's not even legal yet. She's not even 18. So then later on, she gets involved in drugs, in alcohol, in fighting, disorderly conduct, driving under the influence, a lot of legal involvement. And at some point, she gets married to a 69-year-old yacht club president.
Okay.
And apparently their nuptials were printed in the local newspaper society pages. Now, I'm not shading Aileen, but everybody's seen the pictures and how they made Charlize to look up like her.
Right.
So imagine that person in the society pages. Like, I don't know.
There's something.
And honestly, I bring that up because I feel like she was probably like super happy. Like, oh, now I'm like with these rich people and I've made it. But like, are they taking her seriously? Are they laughing at her behind her back? Like, well, how are they taking her given just all this chaos that she's been in? So at some point, she is getting into bar fights. She's drinking a lot. She was in jail. She did assault her husband, and then he got a restraining order against her within weeks of getting married. And then she basically just left, and I don't think they ever like formally got divorced, but they were not together.
It says that they annulled. I'm looking at Wikipedia.
Okay.
I think well, there's so many different things that happen.
So many things that happen. Yeah. So either way, Aileen's out there wiling out, going crazy. Her brother ends up dying of cancer, and she gets some money from his life insurance, and that's when they annul the marriage after that. So I'm guessing she needed the money to annul that or something like that. She gets into more legal issues. She bought herself a nice car, and then she wrecked it. So not doing great. At this point, at least according to the Wikipedia page, I know in the documentary she alluded to it, and in the documentary, there are interview tapes with her. Obviously, she's passed now. So she was talking about her life experiences with some reporters and that woman who had adopted her. So they had a lot of archival footage from her. But she did admit to attempting suicide multiple times in her life. And some of them were pretty serious. Between the ages of 14 and 22, she attempted suicide 6 times. And one of them was potentially lethal. She shot herself in the stomach. Obviously, she survived, but you know, this is not someone who's like, oh, I'm just going to take like 10 Tylenol and see what happens. Like she was definitely in a really bad place. Not that anyone who is even contemplating suicide is not in a bad place, but your choice of means really does say something about the level of distress that you're in and the willingness you are for help. And so the more lethal, it kind of means that like you're not willing to take help, or you're not thinking that there's help or hope in the future. So that it kind of gives you a little picture into her mental state at that time. So basically, things keep going crazy with her. She's getting into all sorts of trouble. She's still essentially homeless, moving from here to there. And then essentially, this is when she starts, we find out later, this is when some of these murders start to begin as she's meeting these Johns, and some of them are being very violent towards her. Some had pulled weapons on her, others had raped her or beat her or injured her at some point. Her lover slash girlfriend slash wife at some point was Tyria Moore. And as I said before, that is who eventually ended up turning her in, but they were together for quite some time.
And she seemed like the most stable relationship she's had in life, sort of. It seemed like she was, at least for my impression from what everything I've seen, seemed like she was actually a good person, and they were actually a fairly close relationship.
Yeah. That being said, they were trouble together also, because they got into bar fights of their own. It doesn't seem like it was fights against each other. It was more the two of them fighting other people.
The world. Yeah.
Yeah. But, they had a lot of chaos and love apparently as well. But, later on, when they're talking with Aileen about this relationship, she's reflecting on how it was just true love, pure love for her, that she, this woman had made her believe in something positive that she had never had before. And so regardless of the chaos and the possible toxicity of the relationship, it seemed like for Aileen, it was everything that she wanted and needed at the time. And even up until the date of her execution, she said that she was still in love with her. So that's kind of sad. So essentially she was convicted of murdering 7 men within 1 year, 12 months. So that's very quick. That's an escalation.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, if we kind of take a step back, and I'm not saying that this justifies murder in any way, but given all of the sexual assault and trauma that she'd been here throughout her life, it's actually not that surprising. It's like there's only so much somebody can take. I'm actually surprised that she had this many encounters with, and they had, shown pictures, or there were reenactments of these. These were all quite large men.
Right. And she's not a huge woman. Yeah.
She's a relatively small woman. So it's actually surprising that one of them didn't kill her first.
Right.
And then even before all that, everything she'd been through, there were so many incidences of violence and drugs and accidents. And it's just honestly kind of shocking that she survived to execution, given everything that her life had been in. And a little bit sad that that was how she went after everything.
Yeah.
But I also think, and we'll get to a little bit, I think she felt, I'm choosing my words very carefully, she felt like she was going on her own terms. I question that a little bit. But she, as I said, had murdered 7 different men, and she did admit to all of that. So she was arrested in 1991 at, this place became very famous. Do you remember the name of the place where she was arrested?
No, I don't.
The Last Resort biker bar.
Yes, the bar. I remember the bar, but I didn't remember the name. The Last Resort.
The Last Resort, because it's just wow, this was her last resort. Yeah.
Yes.
And actually, I believe in the bar, they're still kind of famous for that.
People go there. I remember this now. Yeah.
So she was arrested. The trial happened pretty quickly thereafter. And then she was, as you were saying, sentenced to death for the first trial. And then when they discussed having subsequent trials, she just pleaded guilty and accepted multiple death sentences after that. So she, in total, as of November 1992, had received 5 death sentences. And then in 93, she was sentenced to death again. Okay. So what are your thoughts on that? When you see these horrible crimes and people are sentenced to something that is far longer than any human being can survive, do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's pandering? How do you feel about that?
You meaning adding these on top of
these? Yeah, when someone gets sentenced to 400 years.
Right. I mean, I think our court system and our justice system, there's a whole lot with that. I do think that there's I guess because of the parole process, sometimes they throw those things on there.
You can't have parole when you're on death row.
Well, yeah, death row, right?
Yeah.
You can't. But why would you do a death sentence on top of a death sentence? That makes absolute zero sense. And it still costs money and lawyers and prosecutors and things like that. It doesn't really make any sense, actually. I know that being on death row in general is extremely expensive.
Yes.
But I think maybe because she didn't do appeals, she actually wasn't as much because she was just like, go for it, you know?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're sentenced to death, you automatically are given, I believe it's 3 appeals.
Mm-hmm.
And that is typically just done by the attorneys for the defense. You, as the person who's sentenced, can be involved in that, but you don't have to be. It's just part of the process, part of the judicial system. So she asked them not to do the appeals. I believe they had to do the first one at least, and then they could stop the appeals after that. But you do get at least 1 automatic appeal. And I think that varies per state, but I know it's minimum of 1. So I feel like she also, at some point, this came up in the documentary, she asked to speed up her execution. Like, didn't she say she wanted it sooner? She didn't want to wait.
Right.
And then there's a whole lot of red tape and bureaucracy with that. So they didn't necessarily move it up. I mean, she did, as I said, eventually get executed. But I think that there's a specific process and you can't necessarily be like, take me now. You know, it's not up to you at that point.
It's not up to you at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was getting antsy, and I think we saw like her mental health decline at that point too. So she was just, I think, getting like on edge.
So I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that really struck me in the documentary, and they don't really talk about it at all.
Yeah.
But once someone, regardless of when, if someone is on death row and they are up for execution, if they are showing any signs of mental illness or mental incompetence, they should not legally be executed.
Mm-hmm.
Their execution should be stayed. Obviously, they're not released to go home or whatever, you know, but you stay on death row. And so I think with her, because she was so willing to go to execution, they just kind of were like, oh, we didn't hear that. We didn't hear that you're hearing voices. We didn't hear that you're not showering. We didn't hear that you're having all these mental health crises. Like they kind of turned a blind eye to it because they just wanted to be rid of her. And she wanted to be over. She wanted to be done.
Right.
But legally, mental illness is a reason why someone should not be executed. However, there's no categorical ban. Mm-hmm. Certain states are making exemptions for people who are seriously mentally ill. So this would be someone who is, you know, floridly psychotic and has no reality testing. And typically what they would do is what you would do in any forensic case that has mental health involvement is the goal is to get them to baseline or to get them stable and then for them to serve their sentence. That being said, we all know that the criminal justice system doesn't always do what they're supposed to do. I'm not here to get political and shit on the system, but we just know the reality is that how things are supposed to go don't always go that way. And sometimes they do go the way they're supposed to be. So, you know, it's looking at it from that balanced approach. Incompetency, which I'm not going to get into 100% because I feel like that would be a whole nother episode. That's something that should be assessed, whether you're competent or incompetent to stand execution, which is different from competency to stand trial. Okay. Competency to stand trial means you have to understand the charges that you're facing and you have to be willing to participate in your defense.
Okay.
I believe it depends on what you're being tried for. There might be some additional things, but those are kind of the basic factors. Insanity plea, that's a different thing. Also, insanity plea is basically, and I'm definitely planning to do an episode on insanity and how that is a legal term. It is not a mental health term.
Right.
But insanity plea, you're essentially saying that you were not in your right mind. You did not understand right from wrong at the time of the crime. It doesn't mean that you're always having a mental health crisis or you're always in that state. It just means at the time of the crime that you were not able to make appropriate choices and understand the meaning of your actions. So that's that. So back to Aileen. She was executed by...
I don't remember now.
The only way that people are executed most of the time these days.
Lethal injection.
Lethal injection. Yes.
I'm like, I don't know. Was it something special? I don't remember anything special.
By a person. I know that was kind of an open-ended question. Sorry. So she was executed by lethal injection, and people probably don't want to know, but I'm going to tell you because that's what we're talking about. Lethal injection, it's not as quick and simple as it seems. Basically, depending on the state, I believe, because I think it varies. There's either one doctor and multiple needles or multiple doctors with each their separate needle. And so you don't know who is doing the lethal injection. When it's the one doctor, they know one of them it is, but they don't know which one it is. And that's basically to protect the person who is essentially the executor. So that's how lethal injection is. And do you know what the lethal injection is made of?
I did, but I do not recall.
I know. I don't have it in front of me. That's why I asked you.
I did. And I remember, and I was reading about it, and I could tell you in just a second.
Basically, while you're looking that up, it is supposed to be something that is going to slow all of your organ functions so that you're passing in the most peaceful way possible.
Pentobarbital. And sodium thiopental, because this
I was going to say sodium pentobarbital, not the same thing.
Thiopental, but this is something I'm having like a weird deja vu. I feel like I read up on this for something. Is this something we talked about already? That I researched something on this, or one day I just went on
You might have gone on a bender about lethal injection, or
I don't remember, or maybe it was when I watched this. I was reading it. I don't remember,
or maybe you were confusing it with truth serum.
Well, there's a similar, that's what it is.
That's what I was going to say, that it was probably the truth serum that you were looking into.
So because it's just different doses of it. But there was a reference to it in something. And then I started looking it up. It was probably a show, a movie, something. And I started looking it up. I think that's what it was. But yes, the truth serum is one of the same drugs, but different strength.
Yes.
So there you go.
So that is the method of execution for most states. Some states still have the electric chair, but I believe they're trying to phase that out. But I do think it also depends on the state. I am looking for, I think it's still, no. So, fun fact. Do you know what the last state to use firing squad was?
God, I don't know. I don't want to insult any states. I don't want to keep our listeners. I don't want to guess.
It was Utah, and the last time they used firing squad was 2010.
Wow,
so they also have lethal injection there. I don't know how it's determined
what you get,
which you choose, but I do know that they are the last state to use firing squad.
Yeah. So the way they do this is they render you unconscious with the barbiturate, the thiopental, and then they give you something to paralyze you, and then they stop your heart usually with potassium, because an overdose of potassium chloride will stop your heart. So it's like a multiple, step process.
So maybe that's why it's the 3 injections, and you just don't know which one is which.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the point being, you want to make them unconscious and comfortable, paralyze them so that they're not, shaking all over and in distress. And then,
that being said, you can still see some seizing activity or some problems. That's why they tend to pull the curtain across, just so you don't see those final moments, unfortunately. So that was other interesting facts. That's what it says on this website. It was Gary Gilmore. Does that sound familiar? It should. He was another serial killer. He was executed by firing squad in 1977. And that was when the death penalty was first reinstated in the 1970s.
It just feels like firing squad is very imprecise, more suffering. I don't know.
So just firing squad, fun facts. Just like, and this may be outdated because I learned this quite some time ago, but it lives rent-free in my mind. Firing squad, I believe it's 4 shooters. Only one of them has a bullet. Right. And none of them know. So the rest have blanks. The victim is blindfolded, so they don't know, where it's coming from. And they're all like trained sharpshooters. Of course. They're not going to miss.
Not going to miss, but I just feel like there's got to be some moment.
So you're like, it's not precise.
Well,
it's pretty precise.
How quickly, you know what I mean?
I believe they shoot you right in the heart, so it should be immediate.
I don't know.
It's not like they're shooting you in the foot.
No, I know, but it just feels It feels more barbaric.
I'm not saying I don't agree with
Yeah.
you. I'm just saying it is what it is. And Utah's last execution, since we're talking Utah, was last year in 2024. I do not have the details on who and how. But fun. Is there a humane execution method? No, because every execution method has been shown to carry the risk of malfunction. So another fun fact about
Right.
execution. Do you know whose initial
They messed up?
execution failed by electric chair?
I
Someone
don't
very
know.
famous.
Oh, really?
John Wayne Gacy.
Oh, really?
Yes, the first shock actually set his leg on fire and didn't kill him.
Oh,
And then they delivered a second shock shortly thereafter, and then he died.
again, inhumane, non-precise.
They say it was something about how they didn't shave him correctly enough, and so the electrodes on his leg caught fire with
Right.
the hair. I
Right.
don't know. I feel
But
like
still, just
Yeah.
again, it can
Yeah.
fail. That's not good.
I mean, any of them could fail. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
Even with lethal injection, what if the plunger gets stuck? You only get
Yeah.
half of it, and it's not enough. Like, it's a human method, so it's going to
Right.
have mistakes, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's fun, right? Some other fun facts about execution. LGBTQIA plus people experience more discrimination and tend to have unique issues in capital murder cases, especially surrounding safety when they are incarcerated, because we know that there is a lot of negativity, a lot of people, especially in certain states, who are very anti-trans prisoners. And so sometimes they will not be housed on the unit of their gender identity. It is of their birth gender, which then can lead to issues. There's heightened risk for victimization and sexual assaults, death threats, gender identities sometimes are, if somebody is in the process of transitioning, sometimes that is not allowed in prison. Sometimes it is. There have been prisoners who have transitioned while on death row. I have issues with that. Not about the transitioning itself, more about, I feel like there are so many people out there who are desperate to transition,
Right.
and then someone who's supposed to be being punished, the state is paying for that. But taking that aside, I don't have the issue with the transition in and of itself. It's more about these other people who are so desperate to have it and can't afford it or can't get it or don't have access.
Right.
That being said, I don't think, I'm forgetting his name, but he was in the Ed Gein documentary. I forget his name. He was another serial killer. He did have top surgery done, but I believe it was like illegal when he had it done, meaning like I don't think he had it done on like the up and up by like an appropriate surgeon.
Got it.
I feel like he wanted to have the transitional surgery and then he couldn't get it done. So he purposely took medications to have gynecomastia.
Gynecomastia. Mm-hmm.
So then he grew some boobies for himself.
Yes.
But he did want to be trans.
Right.
I'm
I
blanking on his name.
remember this story. Yeah.
If people are listening and watched it, they're like screaming his name at the stereo, and I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
I would look
stereo.
it up.
We have a stereo. We listen to stereos. Like
I listen to stereo.
What year are we?
Shut up. I listen to the podcast through my radio in my car.
Yes.
That's what
but
I meant.
Like a stereo makes you feel like the big thing, like that you had
the
with, like,
bass,
the
the Bose,
player, and the
bass in the
cassette
background,
tape, and
boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So LGBTQ. So obviously we know that Aileen was openly gay. And so I'm sure she had some difficulties in the prison system. I think definitely they used a lot of that against her in her trial. This part of the documentary, I feel like they also glazed over real fast. Do you remember the judge that they took off of her case?
Remind me.
She had a female judge on her case who they took off. And that female judge was also gay. And I feel like they thought that she was going to be too sympathetic to her.
Yes, I remember this.
Which I was like, fuck you. She's a judge.
Right.
Like, she can still make decisions. It doesn't matter what she's doing in her bedroom.
Yeah, this was the 90s. Things were not accepted. Things were not understood. It was just,
yeah. But I do agree with you. I don't think Aileen's trial was, I don't want to say fair. I don't think it was appropriate. I don't think it went the way it was supposed to go. But ultimately, I think she did get what she should have for the crimes that she committed.
In the end, she did. I just feel like that first trial, if chronologically that one happened, that murder happened first, how can you bring in the future murders to show for that one? You know what I mean? And
Right.
that
But
one
like I
was the
said, it
one
depends on
that,
certain jurisdictions and how
yeah.
they want to try a case.
But that one also felt like the one that could have been the most questionable. Like, he probably could have assaulted her and she probably could have done it in self-defense. Of all of them, that one felt like that one could have been the one you questioned, right? Like, if they hadn't brought in the information from her other ones, that one you might have been like, maybe.
Yes.
The other
So,
ones were
yeah.
more like very purposeful and deliberate. Whereas that one, there was a question of whether it was
Yes.
a self-defense.
So to clarify, it came out after the trial. Even though it was suspected before the trial, the official truth came out after the trial that the first victim that was tried did have a history of sexual violence and sexual assault towards women. And so, not to say that it justified her killing him, but it would have justified her story about why it got to that.
Right. It just, like I said, some of the other ones, I think the construction worker one was like very like, just, I didn't like him. I didn't kill him. Like,
I mean, I don't think we were
them,
really supposed to like anybody involved in these stories.
Right. But it was, it just seems like some of the other ones were more straightforward. I kind of almost wish she got convicted on one of those and not on the original one, because I felt like that was the breaking point, and mental health and trauma and self-defense. That one could have been,
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I think that is something that didn't really have the impact on Aileen's trial that it would today, of sexual trauma and the effects of long-term trauma and complex trauma on someone's actions. I think had she been tried today, I think she would still be on death row, but I think the trial would have been entirely different. I think the public's view of her would have been very different as well.
Yes, I agree.
I think she was demonized. I mean, she killed 7 people. We're not saying she's a perfect angel, but I think a lot of people dismissed her history, dismissed her sexuality, dismissed her trauma, dismissed her mental health concerns later on. And they were just kind of focused on, this bitch killed people, so we got to kill her. Which, again, that kind of brings me to, the age-old question, is execution even really a fair punishment? If we're saying you can't go kill people, but we can kill you.
We can kill you. Right. Yeah. Eye for an eye type of deal thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So to wrap up this fun story, there's a bunch of different methods of execution, but like I said, lethal injection is kind of the big one for most of them. There are several states that do not have the death penalty. New Jersey is one of them. I could tell you all the others, but I don't care about the other ones. We live in New Jersey. We want to know about New Jersey. We don't have the death penalty in New Jersey. How many women do you think are currently on death row?
Probably more than I think, but a whole lot less than men.
Yes, definitely a lot less than men. And this is as of, I'll just give you context, as of October 2025. How many do you think are on death row in the entire United States?
10. More, less, hot, cold?
More.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I have no idea.
47.
Holy jeez. How many men?
Oh, I don't know, but 47 women.
She's like, but I don't know.
And interestingly, the majority of them are white. There are several African American and a few Latina, but the majority are white women. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is 47 women as of October 7th, 2027. And the count includes transgender women who transitioned after being sentenced to death. So women who, both biological women and those who identify as women.
Okay.
So that's
a lot. That's just a lot more people in general than I even really thought.
And the majority of them are in what state? You're going to be shocked. No, California. You got to think of state size. Yeah. A lot of them are Texas, but the majority are California. Yeah.
Sorry, Texas.
I mean, Texas knows, they lean into it. They've got the reputation, so I know it. Yeah. So, and it does list the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those women are now identifying as women, but were originally sentenced under their dead name as a male. So, yeah. So, like I was talking about before, they are still allowing transgender transition while in prison. I support the transition. I feel badly for the other people who are missing out on that, who have not committed a crime.
Right.
Put it that way. And then there was something really interesting that I saw that is definitely going to be saved for another episode, but I'll just read you the title because you're going to be like, what? Massachusetts formally exonerates the last witch wrongfully condemned during the Salem hysteria.
Okay. So they went back and like pardoned the witch.
That was in 2022.
All right.
They cleared the names of 46 people wrongfully charged with witchcraft. I love that.
It is pretty cool.
That's the type of work I want to do on the side.
We need to do some witchy stuff. I love
I mean,
that kind of
I
stuff.
always do witchy stuff, but I just feel like that's like, if I need a side job, I want to like be getting witches exonerated.
That is pretty cool.
That's fucking amazing. Who gets to do that?
I
Even
wonder,
if it's just like an intern who does it, that's still awesome.
Right. You must be like a historian plus a legal, like, you know what I mean? There must be some sort of a crossover there that it's a very special interest. Who pays for that?
I know. Well, it's probably all pro bono work, I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's paying for it. That's why I've said maybe it's like interns.
Yeah.
Do this before you graduate. We'll get you done. But there's very cool work being done out there. There's a lot of other really good work being done. People have always heard about the Innocence Project. It is real, and they do also try to help people who are on death row. It's just the statistics with that are a lot harder than people who are in general population or serving shorter sentences. But the Innocence Project does look into those things if they have enough evidence to do so. But Aileen said that she was guilty, so we're going to listen to what she said about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we said her mental health declined, but she did start getting very like, and who knows if that was meant for show, for it was real. That's the question. She was saying everyone's poisoning her food, that she was going to be like Independence Day, the movie, and go into space or something.
Yeah. The other part of it too is being on death row is not a vacation. It is not fun. And so it's definitely going to impact your mental health. And she already had plenty of things going on in her life that were not going to benefit mental health long term.
Right. So yeah, it's just whether that finally just broke there or that she was just like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a lot of pressure. So
yeah. Oh, I wanted to end on this. So FBI profiler Robert Ressler briefly mentions Aileen in his autobiography with his 20 years in the FBI, and he says that he does not discuss female serial killers because they tend to kill in sprees instead of a sequential fashion. However, he noted that Aileen was an exception, and he actually was the one who coined the term serial killer. He said that term does not apply to women killing in postpartum psychosis or to any murderer acting solely for financial gain, such as women who have killed with a series of boarders or spouses or things like that. So I wonder if he was considering, because she was engaged in sex work, if these murders were for financial gain, because she did take some of their belongings.
Yeah, she did. She was less organized than we would typically see in what we know about profiling of like some of the male serial killers. She was not, I don't think these were very planned. I think these were like in the moment each time almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it was definitely impulsive, which leans more into them being trauma reactions, triggers, flashbacks, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it definitely does have that flavor of, when we've heard about those tragic stories of people experiencing flashbacks from war or things like that and then becoming violent.
Right. Exactly. It's a very different beast, I think, of serial killing than what we're typically used to.
No pun intended.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a serial killer. I'm sure there's other ones that I could cover that have more mental health things. Oh, what? Okay. So you know how they've done Monster, they did Jeffrey Dahmer. Mm-hmm. Apparently our girl Sarah Paulson is going to play Aileen in the upcoming fourth season.
I did see that. Yes. And Sarah Paulson, she's amazing. So
she's chef kiss. Yeah. She does no wrong.
She does it. She does everything. So that'll be good. Yes. All of those are pretty good. Although the Ed Gein one, I had trouble watching that one. I don't know. It didn't pull me in.
I think liked it is not the right adjective to use. It was good, but it definitely got a little too messy towards the end between the fictionalized fantasy hallucination piece of it and reality. Yeah. And I think it was purposely blurred for that reason. But I think for people who don't really know it or who were assuming this is truth, they were like, wait, what? Like they knew this person and this, like, no.
Yeah, that whole one was a little odd to me. But the other ones I did like.
Yeah. So
All right, serial
That's all
killers.
I've got for today, is talking about all that fun stuff. You've learned about the death penalty. You've learned about why people should or should not be executed. You've learned about how we do it, about what states that do it. And there'll be lots of links in the show notes because there's lots more details that I did not go into to sacrifice time for all of you guys.
Sounds good. All right. So thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
You're not drinking alcohol. Rude. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.